comes Crew Chief Greg in his hot rod. That's the chase car today. Hey guys, welcome back to Speedy's Garage. This week, we're going on a field trip to Mexico. If you've been following along, and I hope you have, then you know we've been playing with a little bit of E85 and flex fuel tuning. So I'll go back and say that we started noticing I was maxing out the stock fuel pump in the car, especially in cooler air and good DA. I was seeing the fuel pump hit 89% duty cycle and pretty much hanging out there, and I knew I had maxed out the system, so we dropped in the drop-in dual pump fuel system with the 2 drivers and all of that stuff. I'll link to that to the top. When I did that, it gave me so much more overhead on the fuel system. I got to thinking, I wonder if we could start trying a little bit of flex fuel. And I thought, even if I can't get to full E85, if my injectors, I've got ID 1000 injectors, if they can't support full E85, then they might be able to support E50, E60, which is still better than pump 93 octane. It would be, you know, I'll have to go back and do some calculations, but probably 96, 98 octane. And then as you get closer to E85, it's 100, depending on where you look. 100 octane is what most calculators recommend. Some places say it's 105. So you're getting some pretty good benefit there from the E85 fuel. Now that I had the drop-in fuel system, which I needed anyway, I thought we could start playing with that. And Mike said, well, hey, let's try out a little bit of flex fuel tuning. So he did the heavy lifting on getting the flex fuel set up and working. It's a pretty complex tune. So make sure you go to someone you trust and someone that does some of these. Mike from OST Dyno did this one, and you know, Kurt from Dusterhoff Tuning is well known for them as well. I would trust probably either one of those guys to do it. And then I just did the fine tuning on the tune to get it set up exactly the way I wanted it, and so that I didn't have to bug Mike with a bunch of questions. So once we had the base, I took it and kind of dialed in the fueling to get it about where I wanted it, or exactly where I wanted it actually, and then the timing. So that's really what I've been focused on, is the timing advance. The way flex fuel works, you end up with basically 2 timing tables. One it will use when it's on pure pump gas, and one that it will use when it's on pure E85. And then it actually uses an algorithm to blend the 2 tables when it's something in between. And so I've done a lot of testing. I've made sure that when I'm on 93, it's using the 93 table. When I'm on pure E85, it uses the E85 table. And in between, it was blending, and I was able to kind of figure out how much the blend would be to make sure everything made sense, and it does. And so really, I've come down to the last little bit of testing that I need to do, and I've set the tune up with the proper timing on E85, which is what we have in the car right now. And the best way to know, and this is what Mike has taught me, the best way to know you're good on your timing is to do a visual check of the exhaust. And at wide open throttle or part throttle or wherever it is you're looking for short-term knock retard, if you're getting any, it will show up as little puffs of exhaust smoke coming out the tailpipes. So what we're going to do today is make a trip down to Mexico and make a couple of pulls, and Crew Chief Greg is going to meet us, and he's actually going to follow and keep an eye on the exhaust pipes and tell me if he sees anything. Obviously, I've been data logging a lot, and I'm very comfortable with how we have things set up. I'm not seeing any knock in the logs, but that last little visual check, just to know for sure, is something I want to personally do. Mike always told me, like, hey, if you look at the exhaust and you see any little puffs, you know you're getting short-term knock. If you're not seeing that and your logs are clean, you're good to go. So this is kind of that final step, and just making sure we've got everything set like we want it to. And on my E85 tune for the street on flex fuel, I didn't go like full kill, but I was still very surprised at how well the flex fuel worked. Substantial increase in timing advance, and I've basically got the knock sensors to bone stock settings. I had to adjust them just a little bit in like the 4,000 RPM range. I was getting some false knock, And Josh over at Flat Out Performance was actually kind enough to share a couple of tips with me to figure that out. So thank you, Josh, at Flat Out Performance. And once I had determined that, I was able to make some tweaks and adjustments, got all that set. But everywhere else below 4,000 RPM and above 4,000 RPM, my knock sensors are basically stock red-eye settings. So not changed at all, and I'm not getting any short-term knock. The timing is substantially more on E85 than it is on 93. I'm not going to give you a number because every car is different. This one's running a 272 Hellraiser pulley, ID1000 injectors, and the drop-in dual pump fuel system. So I make about 17-ish, maybe 17 and a half pounds of boost in good air, but usually right around 17, if that gives you a number to look at. But I don't want to give you a number of timing because all cars are different. I don't want to tell you a number and you end up thinking, oh, well, I can do that too. But what I will say is I left a little bit of meat on the bone on E85 just because it's so much horsepower on the street. I feel like it was overkill, really. It's like having my race gas tune in the car. That's how I have it set up right now. It pretty much matches what I was running at the track when I was running 980s at about 140 miles an hour. The timing table is set up almost exactly like E85 is a little bit different how the timing comes in, but very similar to how my race gas setup is. And I know it's good for 980s, and when I'm riding around on the street, that's faster than most things I'm going to come across. So I was good to go with that. So that's kind of where we stopped. In my testing, I did go past the timing advance that I had on the Renegade 109 race fuel, the RM109, just to test and see if I would get any knock, and I still didn't. But I did end up in the end take a little bit back out just because I wanted to leave extra safety on the street tune to not get too crazy. Here I might get with them, and instead of the RM109, I might start running some of their race E85 product, just so that I know it's good out of the can E85 at the track when I'm really going to be leaning on the car. And since I know I'm running a little bit more conservative timing map on the street, I've got a little bit of overhead I can potentially put in it at the track if I have to, but really it's the timing up top that's a little bit less. And what I really might focus on, or think I'm going to focus on for 2021, is the 60-foot times. If I can get those, I'm running around 148s, 150s pretty consistently. If I can get that down to the low 14s or high 13s maybe if I'm lucky, then I think I've got a pretty quick setup, and that's really where I want to focus on the car. I think it makes plenty of horsepower. I just need to maximize it now at the track for putting that down. So with that said, let's go meet up with Crew Chief Greg, get down to Mexico. Here comes Crew Chief Greg in his hot rod. That's the chase car today. Show you guys is that in my testing I did have a little bit of a scare at one point. I was finishing up the timing map, I was doing some tests, I'm on it in 4th gear, it went to shift to 5th, and car kind of fell on its face and stumbled, and it was really a weird feeling. And when I checked the data log, it had that same weird tabletop timing pull that I saw when the original motor blew up at Beach Bend. So I get the car home and I start going over it with a fine-tooth comb. I gave Mike a call and said, hey, if this happened on your dyno, what would you be looking for? And he said, I would be looking for anything banging. He said, I doubt something's happened to the motor based on the timing we have in it, the fueling, and it's E85. We knew it was good, we had measured it. And he said, I doubt anything's happened there. Go over the car with a fine-tooth comb. So I started from the back, started working my way to the front. What was odd is it only happened right at the shift to 5th. And I was checking for the exhaust. A lot of times when you get some weird knock like that, it can be something banging on the car, and it'll hit just the right frequency, excuse me, that it sets the knock sensors off. So I climb onto the car, start checking the exhaust front to back. Everything looks tight. I don't see any problems. And I literally was stumped. And I'm thinking, great, I've hurt the motor. I'm going to have to figure out what to do now. I'm going to build it, put some rods and pistons in it. You know, it's like, crap. Didn't want to have to do this again. And literally, I'm on the creeper. As I roll out from underneath the car, my hand hits the bell housing, and I hear a clang real loud. I roll back underneath there, and the flywheel inspection plate, the little 10mm bolt that holds it in, had backed out about 3/8 of an inch, and the plate was wobbling around. And I guess when it would shift, the plate would bang against the bell housing and set the knock sensors off. So luckily I found it before I actually tore the engine down or took the engine out of the car. So if you come across something like that, one of your logs, be sure you check everything mechanical first. You know, anything that could bang or hit or cause an issue like that. I almost missed it. If my hand, I almost got lucky. If my hand hadn't hit that little inspection cover, I might have missed it, because it's only about that big, and the bolt was backed out about 3/8 of an inch. And looking at the car underneath, it was flush against the bell housing. So what was happening is it would hit the bolt and then bang back against the bell housing, setting the knock sensors off. All right, first thing I'm gonna check is a little part throttle right here. You hear me?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
You're looking good.
All right, here's another little part throttle.
It's nice and clean.
Perfect.
You're looking pretty good behind me.
All right, I'm gonna slow up. All right, I'm slowing down.
Everything looked good.
Luckily we had crew chief Greg that could follow behind us, keep an eye on the exhaust. We can compare it to the log. He says he didn't see a thing. We shot some video of it too, just as a secondary check. I made a couple of pulls. Everything looked nice and perfect, so I think we are good to go. Again, it's a pretty conservative tune for E85. It's a few degrees less than what you might normally see, but again, it's a lot of horsepower for the street. I was told that each degree of timing is between 10 and 12 or 10 and 15 horsepower, depending on where in the RPM range it is, and depending on how knock limited you might happen to be on whatever fuel you were running before E85. And based on just the low end of that range, the 10-degree range, it's making a lot more power now on E85 than it was on 93. And you get the benefit of the extra fluid volume cooling the cylinder down, number one. And so you get more torque on E85. It's really known for producing a lot of torque. So I'm not big on dyno numbers. It drives good, it feels really good. So I think it's all good to go. We're gonna get back to the shop. I'm back at the shop, and I did a quick review of the data logs and the video that we had. We had GoPro on crew chief Greg's car, and he was chasing me. And I noticed we did 3 pulls. I noticed on one of the pulls, right when I saw the car or heard the car shift into 5th, we would see just a small puff out of the driver's side exhaust. And so I'll try to show you that if I can. It's real quick, and crew chief Greg actually didn't even see it when he was following me, but when I watched the video, I kind of went real slow and I saw it happen. I then went back and looked at the data log, and I noticed in one of the logs right at the shift, I saw 2 degrees of knock retard or 3 degrees of knock retard just for a split second right when it shifted from 4th to 5th. And I was trying to figure out, like, what in the world would cause that on E85? Well, I looked a little closer and I noticed that the fuel injectors had actually shut off, and you can see that by injector pulse width, it went to 0. And I also saw the lambda, or the wideband reading, spike. So what it was doing is these cars have built-in torque management, and it will dial back timing to allow the shift to complete without stressing the transmission, which is a good thing, but it can sometimes, depending on the conditions, also shut the injectors off. It's called fuel shut off, and I don't know why the factory would do that. The timing should be plenty. I never want the car to shut fuel off when I'm wide open throttle. And so I called Mike, and he was like, oh, well, check this and this and this in the tune. I found a couple more places where you can actually disable that feature so the fuel does not shut off. And I went out and retested. Perfect. So good thing that we were having Greg follow and film the exhaust. Mike told me that's always the telltale sign. He said, you'll see knock in the log. If you don't see any puffs coming out of the exhaust, it's either so little knock retard that it won't even show, or it's false. And so when we saw it, I knew something was up. got it squared away, and now we've got it exactly dialed in just like it should be. And I'll try to show you in the log too right here where the knock retard is, and hopefully you're able to see it in the video as well. So now we've got our flex fuel tune dialed in, and it's sweet being able to just pull up to the pump, put 93 octane in the tank. If I'm gonna drive to Bowling Green, for example, and want to get some fuel mileage, I can do that. Get it close to empty, fill it up with E85, and now I can make some power. E85 around here is like $1.50 a gallon, $1.60 a gallon, and so it's going to be a great fuel option for me to run around on the street. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please give it a thumbs up if you did. Be sure to check us out on Instagram. It's @Speedys_garage, as well as our website, www.speedysgarage.net, and hopefully I will see you out there.